Narayanang namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirajat. We're at Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 16, the Payovrata process of worship. Text 19. Vadeho Bautika Natma Bautika Natma Kvachatma Prakrite Paraha Kasyake Patiputradya Moha Eva Hikaranam Kva, where is Deha, this material body, Bhautikaha, made of 5 elements, Anatma, not the spirit soul, Kva, where is Cha, also, Atma, the spirit soul, Prakrite, to the material world, Para, transcendental, Kasya, of whom, Ke, who is, Pati, husband, Putra, Adya, or son, and so on, Moha, illusion, Eva, indeed, he, certainly, Karanam, cause. Kasyapa Muni, translation. Kasyapa Muni continued, what is this material body made of 5 elements? It is different from the spirit soul. Indeed, the spirit soul is completely different from the material elements from which the body is made. But because of bodily attachment, one is regarded as a husband or a son. These illusory relationships are caused by misunderstanding. Kasyapa Muni continued, what is this material body? Made of 5 elements. It is different from the spirit soul. Indeed, the spirit soul is completely different from the material elements from which the body is made. But because of bodily attachment, one is regarded as a husband or son. These illusory relationships are caused by misunderstanding. With the permission of Srila Prabhupada and my revered seniors and godbrothers and everyone, I'll read here and make some comments. Srila Prabhupada's purport, the spirit soul, Atma or Jiva, is certainly different from the body, which is a combination of 5 material elements. This is a simple fact, but it is not understood unless one is spiritually educated. Kasyapa Muni met his wife, Aditi, in the heavenly planets, but the same misconception extends throughout the universe and is also here on earth. There are different grades of living entities, but all of them are more or less under the impression of the bodily conception of life. In other words, all living entities in this material world are more or less devoid of spiritual education. The Vedic civilization, however, is based on spiritual education, and spiritual education is the basis on which Bhagavad-Gita was spoken to Arjuna. In the beginning of Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna instructed Arjuna to understand that the spirit soul is different from the body. Dehinosmin yata dehe kumarang yovanang jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age. The soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Bhagavad-Gita, 2nd chapter, 13th verse. Unfortunately, this spiritual education is completely absent from modern human civilization. No one understands his real self-interest, which lies with the spirit soul, not with the material body. Education means spiritual education. To work hard in the bodily conception of life without spiritual education is to live like an animal. Nayang deho deha bhajang niloke kastan kaman arhate vid bhujangye. Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 1st text. That is Lord Rishabdev instructing his sons that of all the living entities who have accepted bodies in the material world, those who have been awarded the human form are most fortunate and should not, must not waste their time endeavoring day and night for sense gratification, which is available to the dogs and even to the hogs who enjoy eating stool. People are working so hard simply for bodily comforts without education regarding the spirit soul. Thus they are living in a very risky civilization. For it is another fact that the spirit soul has to transmigrate from one body to another. Tata dehantara prapti. Without spiritual education, people are kept in dark ignorance and do not know what will happen to them after the annihilation of the present body. They are working blindly, and blind leaders are directing them. Andha yatandhayar upaniyamanaste te pisha tantriyam urudam nibadaha. Bhagavatam 7:5-31. That is young Prahlad Maharaj teaching, instructing his schoolmates that just as one blind men are led by another blind man, they end up in the ditch. So materialistic men, blindly materialistic men, are led by another blindly materialistic man, and they wind up tangled in the ropes. How did it go? The ropes of the results of their fruitive activity, and those ropes are made of very strong cord. And as such, they're condemned to material life after material life after material life, suffering from the three types of miseries. A foolish person does not know that he is completely under the bondage of material nature, and that after death, material nature will impose upon him a certain type of body which he will have to accept. He does not know that although in his present body he may be a very important man, he may get the next body of an animal or tree because of his ignorant activities in the modes of nature. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement is trying to give the true light of spiritual existence to all living entities. This movement is not very difficult to understand, and people must take advantage of it, for it will save them from the risky life of irresponsibility. Kasyapa Muni continued, "What is this material body? Made of 5 elements. It is different from the spirit soul. Indeed, the spirit soul is completely different from the material elements from which the body is made. But because of bodily attachment, one is regarded as a husband or son. These illusory relationships are caused by misunderstanding." Om Gana Timirandasya Ganan Gana Shalakaya Chakshu and Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. So the main point here, or the central point, is that this rare human life must be used properly for self-realization, for self-perfection. And that means simply reviving the revival of our relationship with God, with Krishna, with the supreme truth. We prefer Krishna, Govinda, to such lofty ideas as supreme truth and supreme absolute reality and all of that. It's because ultimately he is personal, as are we. He is our very source. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that hard working for sense gratification is like animals, is just like the animals, which eating, sleeping, mating, defending, with no higher purpose, with no higher goal. Human civilization, through scientific advancement, through apparent economic success in the modern world, Srila Prabhupada described as well, that's animal life still. It's just polished animal life. But the fact is, and Srila Prabhupada says elsewhere, that it's, the human being behaving like an animal is worse than the animals. The animals are guaranteed promotion in the process of the evolution of consciousness, the real evolution. Is the evolution of consciousness, the lower species advancing body to body to ever higher bodies. The animals have no moral choice, unlike a human being, and therefore their advancement is automatic from birth to birth. Eventually, they can be awarded the human form of life, which is the term that Srila Prabhupada used in his translation of Prahlad's instructions to his schoolmates. Meanwhile, while the animals are guaranteed, the humans who simply live animal life, they will regress. They will fall back into the lower species, as Srila Prabhupada said in the purport. Oh, sorry. I thought it was too loud.
Well, it was, but he's trying to adjust it.
Okay. As Srila Prabhupada said in the purport, a man does not know that all his present body may be very important. He may get the next body of an animal or a tree because of ignorant activities in the modes of nature in the present lifetime. So that a human being that behaves like an animal is actually worse because he's wasting away the rare opportunity given by the human form, that he's been awarded in the human form of body. Of course, the very basic teachings of what's referred to, what Srila Prabhupada refers to here as spiritual education, is what Kasyapa Muni here is directly speaking about, and that is the difference between the soul and the material body, that the jiva soul is ultimately has nothing to do with the material body, but because the jiva is marginal energy, same qualities, most of the same qualities as the Lord, but such a small quantity that we're susceptible to falling under the influence of the inferior energy, the material energy. But on the area of education, spiritual education, even by the appropriate use of logic and intellect, the Gyanis, or we ourselves, can understand and actually experience that we are not composed of material elements, that we're composed of something else. Essentially what we perceive and experience is that we're composed of consciousness, that we're composed of something other than this body. That is the preliminary step in spiritual education. It can lead to Brahman realization. And later to Paramatma realization, which through yoga practice and meditation, one can understand that one is not the body, and that the soul is actually different than the supersoul, and that the supersoul is all pervasive. Now, of course, the bogies, as we call them, the malinterpreters, those who really don't wish to surrender to Krishna, don't wish to take Krishna's words in Bhagavad-Gita at face value as Krishna's words, who say that actually it's just Krishna is speaking on behalf of some indistinct real energy, primal energy that is, and that Krishna in fact is just a manifestation, as are we all, of that primal energy, primal reality, and that somehow or other this primal supreme reality has put itself into illusion. This is very pervasive, especially here in India, and with the bogi yogis who have come to the West. And it also underlies much of the material civilization. Without the material civilization realizing it, they're functioning on the basis of purely material consciousness. That reality has to be measurable, quantifiable. And their educational system is based on this. And of course it fails. It fails to teach true morality, and we see that in the world. The morality is steadily drifting downhill. In the purport, of course, Srila Prabhupada talks about Prahlad Maharaj mentioning the blind leading the blind. There are no appropriate leaders in human society, and there's no spiritual education. So, and education means spiritual education. That's right there in the purport. We take the word education, educate. The roots in Latin, edu is to educe, to bring out, to promote. Educe is one of those 25-cent English words. And chere is light, enlightenment. So education means to bring enlightenment, to give enlightenment, to teach enlightenment. One may feel very enlightened by, very gratified by his education in mechanical engineering, but it's not telling him anything about his soul, about the reality of his life, the reality of his consciousness. So that is how we need to understand what true education, spiritually based education is. It really means teaching, well, it means teaching directly spiritual truth, the nature of the self, the nature of the material world, the nature of God, and the interrelationships between ourselves, the supreme truth, the supreme Lord, and this world, the material world. That information is all available in the Vedic literatures. In fact, it's all available in Srimad Bhagavatam, just in the single ripened fruit of all the Vedas, Srimad Bhagavatam. The nature of the individual soul, the nature of the Supreme Lord, and all the other individual souls, the nature of the material world, and all of the interrelationships. That is spiritual education. And that includes the information and the skills for progressing in one's spiritual education, for progressing towards purification and perfection of one's spiritual life, of one's founding of one's identity. Another tier, another level of spiritual education is equipping devotees to engage with the non-devotees effectively and appropriately, particularly the intellectual, the intelligentsia, the influential intelligentsia in modern materialistic society, equipping with the proper skills, language skills, reasoning skills, logical skills, debating skills, all based on spiritual understanding, based on Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada was very adamant at some points. I worked in the BBT for many years, and he was very adamant that we profusely fund the Bhaktivedanta Institute. At one point, based on some misinformation that he got from some people who didn't understand how the BBT's finances worked, he actually said we should shut down the art department and the Sanskrit department, and divert all that money, and more to Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj and Sadhuputa, Madhava, and the scientists, because they were engaging with the true intelligentsia in modern material society. It turned out that Srila Prabhupada had been given some incorrect information. There was full funding going in that direction, and it was not coming out of the then current sale of his books. It was there were other sources for that funding, and it was quite substantial. Are there any questions, comments, additions, or especially corrections? To quote somebody, I live to be corrected.
Thank you very much for the class. At the very end, you began to mention your time of PPT.
Yeah, speak.
Yes. Oh, okay, you mentioned your time at the end there, your time with PPT. What years were you working for Srila Prabhupada at PPT?
The whole time you were there. I started distributing books along the streets in Pittsburgh in 1971. But no, as far as working directly in the BBT, it was from very early in 1976 until sometime in, I believe it was 1988.
This is more of an observation. We see here that Mr. Moody has made this statement and wanted to clarify more about the distinctions or the differences between the elements and the spirit soul. And so this conversation took place, perhaps not even in this galaxy that we are involved in today. And this has continued throughout the time. This was spoken some thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. And the populations of all of the planets, the higher, middle, and lower planets, were in this delusion because of these material elements and their particular circumstances. But from all of the inhabitants in the material world, how many actually took to heart the value of the instructions and were able to escape. So that is very, very few. And so today here we're sitting in this Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're given the opportunity to hear these words again. How many times they've been spoken, we don't know. And then how many of us here in this room will take to heart the instructions that are being given to us and reap the rewards or the fruits of this sublime knowledge. So we know that out of many, 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 many entities living in this material world, only a very limited few are going to be successful. So my plea is to all of us here, you become successful. The process is very sublime and dangerous. We live in Kali Yuga where it is a very simple process because we are very low and unqualified. All we have to do, what did Lord Chaitanya say? Harinama, 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 So we just chant Hare Krishna. We don't have to do anything else. And everything will be revealed to us. So keep your determination very strong and make it your sole duty to Srila Prabhupada to adhere strictly to his instructions. And what did he say would happen? You will go back to God and do this.
Room is a rare gathering of many of the rarest souls on the planet, the rarest jiva souls who are actually working to perfect their devotional service, their lives. And also that we have our outreach, Harinam Sankirtan, on the streets where people hear the holy name. And this injects sukriti into them, such that if they even hear about it and think about it for a moment, they're guaranteed a human life in their next birth. And at that point, the snowball, it's like the snowball rolling down the hill. It starts their spiritual advancement, or continues it, kickstarts it, or continues it, and that is why even the simplest functions of the street sankirtan is so important, because you reach in a large city, you reach hundreds or thousands of people a day with the holy name, and that's the Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement is taking centuries. It's taken 5 centuries so far. But just since Srila Prabhupada, since Bhakti-Vinod Thakur, it grew tremendously. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, it grew even more tremendously. And then it was like a nuclear mushroom cloud from Srila Prabhupada. And that will continue to expand in that way. And by injecting sukriti, prasadam, and by the quality of the devotees, it will be a wonderful thing. But we all have the responsibility to ourselves, and to our brethren, to our God brothers, God sisters, and I guess the term would be co-religionists, to keep up the good work, keep the faith, and keep the energy moving.
Difficult to understand? Does it mean it is difficult or it is easy? Or the second question is that people should take advantage of this because it will save them from the risky life. So part two of my question is that if it's easy, why is it not many are joining? And if it's difficult, then why is it the same thing? Why is it take so much time for others? I know some bhaktas, even bhaktas, not initiated for like 20, 25 years. But they're practicing, but they don't take up it seriously. Can you please?
Well, what Srila Prabhupada says at the end of the purport is the movement is not very difficult to understand. So yes, it's quite simple. It's the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Our philosophy is natural. It's within us. It is what we are. Basically, we are servants of Krishna, whether one likes it or not. That is the reality of our existence. That's our very constitution. You can't expect to be happy without acting in accordance with what you are. I mean, that's simple logic. And the philosophy is if it's simple, it's quite simple, but it's not easy. We know that. If it was easy, we'd all be Mahabhagavatas yesterday. And why is it not easy? It's because of our conditioning. Because we've been here for eons, for countless births, most of us. If anybody hasn't, you're hiding here somewhere, get with us and teach us. And we've been conditioned for eons of time. We've been so fortunate in some past birth to have some contact with a pure devotee. Just like when we go on Sankirtan, say Ratha Yatra, one of the big festivals, and people who have never heard the holy name hear it for the first time, or hear the Sankirtan for the first time. That's the beginning. We had also a beginning, and we've come this far, and we've actually, with all humility, we've come quite a ways. Got a lot. I feel like I have a long ways to go. Srila Prabhupada in his part of his 1935 Vyas Puja offering to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and I have to paraphrase it because I haven't got it fully memorized, although it's right on the wall in big, large print in front of my desk, where I sit every day at home for a while. But he says that he has no hope for any direct service to the Lord for the coming crores of births of my lives, but that he just has the one hope, the one request, the one prayer that he's happy to, he understands that he's going to be here for many births because of his past misdeeds, he calls it. But he's praying that, in effect, in every new birth, as early as possible, let me be reminded that I'm a servant of the Lord, that is my very nature. And he's praying to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta for this benediction, that in each successive lifetime, I'll be reminded as quickly and early as possible that I'm what I am, that I am the servant of Krishna. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, he got instructed in the womb. Now there's a big advantage. We can only hope.
Be more enthusiastic to follow the rules and regulations and strictly adhering to the process. Sometimes you see somebody's been around for quite a long time, they might cut corners. They sometimes say cut some corners here and there. Whereas new people, they're very enthusiastic, they're maybe even fanatically following exactly what is to be done, how it's to be done. It seems that somebody's been around for a while and sees the dangers of Maya, the dangers of illusion. Why is it that sometimes we let our guard down or start thinking, well, I've been through all that already, and I can just kind of, chill back a little bit?
Well, I think there's two factors. One is there's a maturing of the understanding of Krishna consciousness, there's a more mature understanding, and that one doesn't have to be fanatical. At the same time, the fact is that Maya lays it on heavier when she sees someone is actually starting to break free. The tests, and it's her job. She does a good job. Very good. She's a devotee. She lays it on heavier to test the sincerity. On behalf of Krishna, she tests our sincerity. And we do tend to get a little comfortable. And especially Westerners, I think. Srila Prabhupada said the Westerners have a problem because they're not sufficiently afraid of Maya. So I feel like I loosened up for quite a few years. I worked, we still had a lot of contact with our devotee friends, and in Cinnamon, New Jersey. Isn't that it? Yeah. And we attended festivals and had a lot of association with devotees, attended the Rath Yatras every year on the West Coast, and some other festivals. But my wife and I both we had professional lives, professional careers. She had her own business, which I got sucked into as well. And we were, we did not chant our rounds, 16 rounds a day. As far as as far as the proscriptions, the don'ts, the four regulative principles, we didn't have there was not a problem with that. That had become almost second nature for the most part. But the actual prescriptions, the proscriptions, okay, those are pretty easy, relatively speaking. They were harder when we were young. That may be part of the reason we were so wound up and energetic, as we had that energy to fight. But later on, the proscriptions, the regulative principles, the avoidances came more naturally. But then the positive, chanting rounds, and where we live, still to this day, there's no temple for 3.5 hours away, no installed deities. So we have little home deities, and we do worship daily, but for many years we didn't have that. My work was all over Western USA, and her business was in California and Nevada. and we had,
Starting to drop.
oh, okay. Like my devotional determination, sagging sometimes. But then when my wife and when we gradually retired, sold our business, 3 of the 5 owners of the business are guru coolies, and they're doing very well with it. I don't know about their sadhana bhakti. I have my doubts, but they are doing well with it, and they were attending festivals. But since that time, I've really renewed a lot of the sadhana bhakti, definitely the Vaidhi variety, not the Raganuga variety, and done much more reading and studying. For years, I managed the distribution of the books from the BBT to the temples. So I was distributing books by the truckload, but I hardly ever read them. Srila Prabhupada said we must boil the milk. He wasn't concerned with making thousands and thousands of new devotees. He was more concerned with keeping the devotees that are here and making them stronger and stronger, because then automatically more people would come by the potency of the purity of these devotees. And that's, he always said, preaching is the essence, books are the basis, purity is the force, and utility is the principle. Purity is the force. That's what we need to understand, both societally and for the mission, as we pursue the perfection of Lord Chaitanya's mission, but also individually. Purity is the force. This is how we're going to advance ourselves, and how we're going to be able to help each other, which is essential. We need each other. I mean, it's when I mentioned the prescriptions, chanting, rising early, remaining clean, attending arti or temple functions where possible. If not, then you home worship, associating with devotees, offering foodstuffs, only taking Krishna Prasad. The association of devotees is very essential there as well.
Yes, I'd like to also comment on Bhagavad Gita's question in regards to the zeal that sometimes we see in the newer devotees. We all experience that, and so taking the Krishna consciousness, one can feel freedom from material distress, but I'm about this has been here for many years, 50 years for myself. But the thing that we do not get freedom, as you said also, Maya is very determined to distract us and keep us here in this material world. So the modes of material nature continue to influence us, and anarthas that we are unaware of continue to manifest themselves, which also disturb. And so, all of these things are described, and the solutions to these dilemmas that we are going to face in the future are given to us. But life is very long. We don't know how long we're going to live. If we're in ecstasy and die immediately, then that's wonderful. But I keep suffering every year, every day, something new manifests itself, and that's why I get back to one of the original conclusions that Prabhupada purport. Very easy to understand, but it's, you know, implementing it in our lives, not just for a day or a week, but 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, if we're able. It's not so easy.
Yeah, we have to, it's the term keep on keeping on. That determination and not allow ourselves to lament too much our inability. That can actually cripple us, to lament our inability to stick with it. It's the old saying of, well, I'm chanting my rounds, but my mind is wandering all over the place, and the quality of my rounds is lousy. What should I do? Keep chanting. Keep chanting. And Srila Prabhupada was also, somebody quoted this the other day. Was that Bhakti Gauravani Maharaj? That Srila Prabhupada was asked by, I guess it was someone fairly new, about, well, when I'm chanting, my mind is just wandering all over, and what do I do about that? And Srila Prabhupada says, mind? What mind? Oh, was that you? Okay. Mind? What mind? You just chant and you hear. You focus on hearing and chanting. And I've always, I hesitate to say this sometimes, but I've always found, and actually Satyadev had to do this for years, and he still does it now, even though he doesn't need to anymore. Chanting silently in the mind. Yelling the mantra in the mind. It makes the mind stay here with the mantra. Satyadev was a paramedic for many years, and in the Bay Area. They live in Pacifica. And they're on for 2 or 3 days, 24 hours on call, and they live in the station. Well, he had to chant his rounds, and some of the other guys are sleeping and such, so he's learned, he developed the skill, and I've found it to be really helpful if I'm getting disturbed or distracted while chanting japa, is to just chant in the mind. But of course the sound vibration is the material sound vibration. It's spiritual, but it's also a material sound vibration, is very potent. But the mental sound vibration is also quite potent and helps keep the mind more focused. And the clock struck 9. All right. Thank you. Hare Krishna.